We're back on another exciting episode of Glasses of Starfleet So Hail, where we have a casual and informal conversation about Star Trek. Today we're focused on Star Trek Prodigy Season 2, Episode 8.
We are indeed.
Is there in beauty no truth? I almost said the other title, which is from TOS, which is... Now I'm confused. But I got this one right, though. Toddy, welcome back. How are you? It's good to see you. You look grislier than last week.
I look grislier than last week. What does
Like
that
you've
mean?
been out hiking in the mountains or something.
I've been a buddy of mine had his basement flooded due to the insane amounts of rain that we've had recently over here.
No.
And so today was the day where we were like basically stripping the walls and pulling out all of the big stuff. So I was working today.
Wow.
Pulling shit out.
I worked hard in the sun yesterday and I forgot to wear sunscreen, which you're never supposed to do. But I have a nice tan now, which is nice. So it's good.
Tan man.
What is your background? Oh, look at that. That's cute. Very nice. I don't have any merch for Prodigy. I don't have like a Prodigy hat or a Prodigy mug. So I'm all Picarded today.
Actually, you know what? I'm going to go timeline today. I'll do the timeline. I like the timeline.
That's funny. Jill in the audience says, I love this countdown above all others. It's like the generic one that comes with StreamYards. Like, I've been thinking of commissioning one, but I guess if
well, no, I mean that's it. This is it. You have to keep this one.
I have to keep this one.
Maybe you can keep the exact same one, but with like a Star Trek font.
No, because like it's
no,
right? I don't know if I'd be able to use it.
Mm.
When did you watch this episode? Like recently, or did you watch it
this morning?
Like you did watch it this morning. So I have a lot to say about this episode.
I wonder why.
I wonder why. I don't know. I'm curious why you wonder why.
I think there's a certain theme that we might address going into this
episode.
There's
a lot of themes. There's a lot of great themes, but this is, to me, I'll just say that I place this episode up there with Law's creation. Like what's it called? I place it in that category of episode. It's one of those special episodes of Star Trek that I think.
Okay, so you're not saying it, like not necessarily like rating or ranking them. You mean like in
thematically, but also those are episodes that typically it goes into a league of episodes that are very highly ranked, in my opinion. Okay. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so I would say that that's the case. Also, in spoiler for my rating, I guess. I guess I've already revealed that we're gonna give it a high rating. Ooh, Chuck's in the audience. Hey, Chuck, nice to see you. We got Jill, by the way. Shout out to Joel, who's there too. Yep, we got some chatters.
Hello, everyone.
Anyways, I'm stalling a little bit to give Cake is Eternal some time to chime in, but I guess we should get started. It's about 4 minutes into it. So
like I said, we gotta talk slowly.
So
that when they watch at like 2 speed to catch up, they know to catch up.
You know what I could do? I could give channel updates at the beginning real quick. So there's no text trek.
Hit the like button. God damn it.
Do that too. We're broadcast on 3 different channels.
Oh my God.
We're on YouTube. We're on Twitter /X. And
it's so stupid. It's Twitter, people. Come on.
I know. But you have to say it. I don't know. Because I feel like when you don't say it, the algorithm pushes you down because it's like, oh, he's being defiant.
Oh, he's being defiant.
Yeah, which is good. I should be defiant. But then there's also on Facebook. So we're on 3 different channels broadcasting. I'm trying to figure out how to do Instagram as well, because I feel like our, having different places.
I had no idea. Like Instagram streams also.
Yeah, you can do stream. Everyone's streaming now. It's all about streaming, not necessarily streaming networks, but streaming on social media platforms. I don't know.
Jill says no spoilers past this episode. Tati has not seen it. No, that's very true.
Right,
This
we'll
is
do that disclaimer. And if anyone new in the chat, you know what? I think I can pin that tweet. I'm gonna pin it. Hold on. Yes, nice. Now anyone who shows up will see that tweet and know. I mean, not tweet. That's not a tweet.
It's an X. No, it's not an X.
It's not an X either.
It's just a comment, yo. It's a
just
chat.
But anyways, now we'll see that. Oh, my thing is doing something weird. Toddy, would you like to give the episode summary since you just saw it, since you're just fresh off this episode?
Yeah, I can.
If you do, help me out a little bit.
I say no
to
enough times
message.
for me to say yes at this time here.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
So
I'll chime in if I.
We pick up on the kind of damaged Infinity with a bit of a damaged crew here, and we pick up mostly with Zero. That it's a Zero that is lamenting their current kind of, I guess, situation. Not so much like, you know, their floaty being wasn't mishandled or anything, but it's the suit, like the exosuit, the armor that they've got going on. Like the suit isn't in good shape, and so Zero's kind of feeling down. Doesn't feel like they can really, I don't know, do a lot to help the crew except, you know, drop a couple quips, like a couple jokes.
Keep the morale up, but Zero always does that anyways. But yeah,
run some scans, you know, got to sit on that seat and just wait for the day to go by. And then all of a sudden there's like a distress signal, well, not so much a distress signal, but a signal from a planet where people say that they can actually help Zero and their predicament. You know what I mean? They can help them get like another body. So, I mean, at this point, we're thinking maybe like it's a fix up, a new suit. You know, the Mach 3, I guess at this point it would be.
Oh my God, Zero's like Iron Man. I just
yeah.
That's awesome.
So Dahl was going to kind of dismiss it and say the mission is the mission, because the priority, of course, right now is they're trying to find Chakotay. They're trying to find out who sent like the message from you know, out of dimension or out of time or whatever. But Gwyn speaks up. And so it is decided that they will take, yes, it's decided that they will take a bit of a detour and drop by this planet and see if they can, you know, they can help, which makes sense. I mean, you want everyone to be, you know, as optimal as possible going into these missions. So if you can, then you can. And they turn up on this a very yellow planet, basically, and here we find it's almost like kind of it's kind of like an advanced aesthetically tribal kind of people that they find, and everyone was supposed to have like nobodies, as Jankum says, but it turns out they are actually nobodies, but they have bodies. What? Because there's special rings going on with this planet, and there's some sci-fi mumbo jumbo that explains the fact that they can actually generate a body and have a living body and actually live as corporeals, and they can feel things and have all the sensations of corporeal beings on this planet. So a bunch of non-corporeals from many different species, like I think
Medusan, we had Medusans, we had a Calamarain, we had what were the ones that the third one that they mentioned?
I think Calamarain was the third. There's a middle one that I don't remember. But anyway, they've got like that's it. They've got all of these different species, because some like their non-corporeal state, and I guess they're content with it. But others want to experience something else. They feel like they want to experience something else. So they've all kind of like rejoined each other on this planet. And it turns out that on this planet, there's a bit of a ritual that happens where you get chased by like a giant stingray, and if you survived the
Nazamon,
if you survive this ordeal, because you've like felt the strongest of sensations, like the fear for your life, and you're fearing dying in your corporeal state, then you have like a very strong connective bond with your new body.
They refer to it as the forgotten sense, which is interesting. I have a lot of questions about that.
Um, so of course, Zero is very intrigued by all this, and with some like I guess a little convincing or a little maybe like nudging, like don't worry about it, go for it.
Well,
Uh,
the one thing is that Zero doesn't quite know all the details. There was one thing.
No, but there's one point that no one knows all the details at some point. So
Right. Yeah,
when Zero
exactly.
goes into the little pod thing and actually gets this body, there are some details that are being left out, omitted by the leader of this planet.
Ion.
After, yeah, after that, they then learn the details. The details being, of course, that like once you have, I guess, in a sense, bonded with your new corporeal body, very few people ever want to let it go, and leaving the planet means letting it go. So Zero is confronted and faced with like this situation where they have to, I guess, give up the body or give up the friends. And you know, Zero being Zero, they go off with the friends. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
friends first. It's mission first. And then on the old Voyager, or the new Voyager, I guess, what's happening is
On the new Voyager, it's true.
Magel's like, yo, this ain't right. So she's playing a game of Parisi Squares in the holodeck with the others, with like the hologram versions of our protagonists. And thus she proves to Janeway and the other superior officers that like they're not right. So thank you for bringing us to our attention. They try to figure it out. They're like, maybe there's been some sort of sci-fi anomaly or whatever. And then very quickly they figure out, hold on, they're holograms. So they just deactivate them. And they're like,
Well,
when did this
because
happen?
it's the
And then
doctor's fault. Rodrigo.
very, very quickly, our man, the Andorian, figures out, he's like, okay, there's no ships missing, but the Infinity's missing. Clearly they took the Infinity. And Janeway doesn't question it for like a second. She's like, start scanning. For the Infinity whatever traces there. The what is it?
The subspace signal or the warp
I think it's
signature
the
or
warp
whatever,
signature.
warp
That's it.
trail.
The
Yeah.
warp signature. Yeah. So
I
they
love
start.
Janeway. She's very
Oh, that's right. They also reactivate the Gwyn holodeck, the hologram that had
That's right.
disappeared.
That was traumatic. Oh my gosh.
And
For
yeah, and like
that was a
the
good scene.
hologram Gwyn is like going through some shit, right? And so they just like turn it off. They deactivate the program completely, and that's it.
That was really good. I'm impressed. I'm with Jill. Like you did a good job. But I think Toddy's better when it's fresh. If this had been like a week later, he wouldn't be able to. He wouldn't have been
No,
able to do this
it
story
wouldn't be. No, it's because I saw it today, so I'm able to
today. Yeah,
come
too
out of
much
it.
would have been stuffed in his mind uh to do it. I was impressed. I didn't interrupt you as much because you were doing such a good job, in my opinion. but just to interrupting doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad summary because it could be so engaging that I want to interrupt too. So don't use interruptions as a gauge.
I'm gonna use your defense. Uh, for me too, because sometimes often I interrupt you when you do summaries, and it is not a sign that your summaries are not good. It's just because
Correct. I know. It could be that they're engaging. By the way, this episode was directed by Roland Lee and Andrew L. Schmidt, and the writer was Keith Sweet II. I gotta give you a huge shout out because this episode's pretty cool. So I kind of went over my feelings about the episode, but overall, how'd you feel about this episode? Like, what are you thinking?
I think this is a special episode. I think you're pretty right about that. I think it hits some very important beats. It in my opinion moves the plot along quite well, but it does take the time. This does feel like one of like the more episodic, in a sense, episodes of the Star Trek of old. Though it is still moving the plot along quite well. I thought that visually it was absolutely stunning. Like the art design that's going into like the planets and these bodies. I won't call them the species, but like the bodies that all of these non-corporeal species have found themselves in are absolutely amazing. And I think that thematically, not only was it great to actually like have an episode that focuses on like I guess one of the more secondary characters in our main cast, but also I think there's some messages going on that are quite interesting and that are worth being talked about.
Prodigy,
yeah.
interestingly, doesn't feel like there's a main It feels like a true ensemble show. Like even
I disagree.
like really, who's your? Because sometimes I'm like, is the main character Janeway? Is the main character
No,
Chakotay? Is the main
no,
character Doll? Who's the main character? Is it
it's
Doll?
Dal. I think it's Dal.
No, I think it could be any of all of them.
If it's not Dal, it's Gwyn. But
we do spend a lot of time with Doll and Gwyn. I feel like we spent more time with Doll last season than we're spending this season. I think there's like more of a balance. I don't know. Maybe it's because we have more of the.
I feel like I agree. The ensemble is better balanced.
The ensemble is stronger. This like
season. TNG is about Picard.
Yes.
And if it isn't about Picard, it is about Picard and Data.
I think it inevitably breaks out into like the top 3 or 4. Like there's a top 3 or 4 characters that you follow. But I mean, I think like
it's not about Janeway.
Picard is about Picard. You know?
No, I mean? Interestingly, Picard isn't so much about Picard as TNG is about Picard.
Really? We're not here to talk about it. We'll talk table. Let's put a pin in that.
We'll put a pin in that. But yeah, I actually think that Kate Mulgrew would disagree with you, and I think she wouldn't be very happy with the show being about Janeway. Because I think she's really just trying to push, like,
I was throwing out all the different things because I was trying to say that it could be about any of them. Like it's who you want to. It has like. It has
that appeal, definitely. Yeah.
Like that you could focus, you get enough meat for each character. That's why I said it's like a real ensemble cast or a real ensemble feeling show, because there's like strong stories about each character and you're getting a lot of information. You know, you're kind of getting a lot of information. I mean, like the Janeway thing is a strong story point in this. Like we're all looking for Chakotay. You know?
Yeah, but I do think it's about Dal, and I guess the way my brain reasons with this is because in the beginning, the first episode and the escape picks up really with Dal being the person that's trying to leave. The planet, like that's where that's for me. And then Dal picks up the crew, kind of like, these other people that were there as well, and they become the gang, like they become the group. And then of course Gwyn, she is like I feel like she's like he would be lead and Gwyn would be supporting, in my opinion. That's how I would visualize it. You know what I mean? The same way, like I feel Mariner is the main character in Lower Decks. Again, it's tough because you could say Boimler just as much. You know what I mean?
Feel like they're even on.
But I think I feel like Mariner is the main character.
Like over the span of the 4 seasons we've gotten, I feel like we've gotten a lot. There's none of this like on Strange New Worlds. I'm like, who is Erica Ortegas? Like, give me more Ortegas, right? But I don't feel that same thing in Lower Decks or Prodigy. I feel like both shows do a really good job of. I agree with you, like that. Like, if you had to pick a main character, Beckett Mariner is definitely the main.
Strange New Worlds is a strange product because I do really feel like they have handled it very well, and the main characters to me are Spock, number 1, and Pike. It's the 3 of them. That's how I feel.
Spock number 1, like over Pike, you think?
No, the 3 of them together. It's like,
gotcha.
In no particular
number
order.
1. I get. Sorry.
Spock, Una.
Like I thought you meant
Pike.
Like Spock was in the first.
No, bloody number 1. Spock, Una, Pike.
Gotcha,
the 3 of them. Whereas you see in TOS, I do feel like Kirk is main, more so even than Spock and McCoy.
I agree.
But then again, it's just feelings, you see. And in Enterprise, Archer is main. If I were to define a group, it would be Archer, Trip, to Pole. Like in no particular order. Again, it would be them. That's the 3.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
But that tends to be like the Trek formula. Is just like you have a ensemble cast. Some shows do a better job of developing the ensemble than others. Assembling Avengers.
Avengers ensemble.
And then other shows focus more on either the main character or like a small group of characters. So I agree.
In any case, we get a side, like a side character which is not really a side character, but we get one that isn't the main specifically.
Zero's not a side
Zero.
character. Zero's not
Zero
the
gets
main character, but Zero's an important character. And I think one of the most intriguing characters in Star Trek since Data and Spock. I think it's Spock, Data, Zero.
what?
I think Zero fulfills kind of like what that, in many ways, I think for people being introduced to Star Trek who might feel out of their, out of like not quite in the norm, if you will, in the mainstream or whatever, they're gonna latch on to Zero. Zero is such a compelling character, like that surprises you in so many ways, like, and can like appeal to a lot of, I think, outsider type people who are looking for a way to fit in, a way to find themselves, things like that. So, he's got like restrictions, like he can't be his true self, non-corporeal self, like other non-corporeals can, but Zero has the issue of like where he'll drive humans mad, or like some species mad just by his appearance. And then he's got like, he can, have all these outer shells that are like different expressions of himself. And now in this episode, we get to see him manifest in a corporeal body, and it's like beautiful. Like it fits. Like I don't know how you felt, but the first time I saw it, like I was like, oh yeah, that's Zero. That's like totally like you could feel like the character in the way that they designed him and stuff like that. And so yeah, I think he's up there. I think it's and his journey has been kind of intriguingly a lot like Data's. That's the one I keep going back to, is like, Data was trying to become more like how he sees himself inside, by trying to become human or whatever, and Zero's kind of doing the same thing.
So I don't equate.
And obviously, sorry, one more thing, it can relate in our current time, because I think this is a journey, and I can't speak for this, personally, but just from my observations and everything I've learned from like the community. But I think this is a character that could also relate to many queer, trans individuals. So yeah, so I think it's important, because that's like
I think that's a big part of the conversation we're gonna have today. So interestingly, so full disclosure, I'm not a fan of Odo. I don't really like Odo, but that comes from the fact that, like, anyway, I don't like the way he deals with things on a, like, I guess, cop level. But putting that aside, I do feel like
you got to come on our DS9 discussion sometimes when we have them. Sorry, we're not having one this Saturday. Yeah. But anyways,
go. So yeah, I'm not a fan of Odo, but I would equate, and this is just me, like, I guess everyone comes down to having their own feelings, but I would equate Zero's journey more so to that of Odo's. In the sense of, I don't feel like Zero necessarily has a longing to be corporeal, but I do feel like Zero has a deep and profound intrigue as to what being corporeal can provide. And so I feel that that's slightly different to what, because Data wanted to be human, longed to be human, whereas Odo didn't necessarily want to be.
Yeah, I'm surprised you would say that, though, because like this whole season, remember, he was lamenting because they were in the first episode, the couple were holding hands, and he was lamenting that he couldn't feel what that's like. I think he's described in this episode, Ion calls him the curious one, which is interesting. So I do think that's maybe he doesn't necessarily want to be human, but I think he wants to feel in a way that he's incapable of feeling right now, and that means in some way having sensations the same way a corporeal being would, like he wants to taste and smell and touch and
but at where we are in the show right now, I didn't feel like it was like as kind of like set in stone as Data. Like Data is very clearly wants to take it as close to being human as possible. You know what I mean?
But but we're seeing that desire develop. We didn't know early Data, like when he first got turned on, right? Like he went to the academy and stuff like that. So I equate it to Data. Like this is kind of like what Data little Data, like, because Zero's like very mature, but he's also very young, in the span of like a Medusan's life or whatever. He was
Mm.
captured when it appeared like he was a young Medusan because he was a little smaller and a little sprightlier or whatever when they captured him, and so he's definitely more mature, and I think he's on the older end of the crew. If from my observation, what
I
do you
do
think?
think that like these species that we have in this group are so different that it's probably difficult to start equating. Like a
Yeah,
teenage
I know.
Vulcan
Yeah,
would
we'd
be
have
so
to.
different from a
We'd be
teenage
like
human.
I get that, but I'm just saying, relatively speaking,
Yeah,
I
probably. I
think
think Gwyn and
yeah,
Zero are probably the oldest, like they're the elders of the
yeah,
group. You know what I mean?
yeah,
With
and Doll's like right there, probably close
Rock
by.
and Murph probably being the youngest.
And then you have the complication of Jankum is technically probably older than all of them because wasn't he on like a sleeper ship in hibernation? So how many years?
Jankum is a
Yeah.
pug, right?
Yes, he's like the runt kind of is the
So
impression that I get. Yeah.
maybe there's a difference in like development or something going on.
Oh, that's a good reference to Ariel. Hey, I didn't think about that. That's a nice connection, though. There's a bit of that, isn't there? Like a little bit of the Little Mermaid story with the especially with the limited time, perhaps too.
Mm,
Ooh, lots of good
mm.
connections.
So yeah,
Um,
like okay, so before we jump into like anything else in this episode, I think that this is definitely metaphorically speaking, I think like it's talking about like non-binary and like especially trans people. You know what I mean?
mhm.
People that are going through like they feel like they are of one gender, but they are physically of another. And this is what this episode is addressing. I think it's not addressing it head on with humans, and it's putting it in the sci-fi setting, and it's using the characters and the tools that they have. But I think that that's what we're going for, right? That's the thematic, that's a theme that's going on in this episode pretty clearly.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that definitely because I mean, like uh, in the Star Trek world, everything's kind of. I think there can be multiple facets of how you read something, but I definitely think that at least as an audience member, because it's so relevant right now, I
Mm.
see it in the news and I'm seeing like my friends who are trans struggle, with perceptions, how people perceive them. And like, some folks are very supportive. Other folks are very like, um, unsupportive and dismissive and stuff like that. There's a lot going on. So I think, yes, right now, this transition from non-corporeal to corporeal 100% is something that I think people who are feeling that can relate to. But I do think it goes even further. Like, I don't know what your experience was like, but I know growing up, like I tried out different Sohail personalities, like
Different
different Sohail
use.
outfits, different me's, until I found the one that fit the best, and I think that's kind of like what we're seeing through Zero's journey is that Zero started out like in a in a box as a prisoner on this planet, and then ended up being in like this robotic kind of looking
In a
body, and now
sphere
in a sphere. That's right.
as a
And now he's
as a free being.
it's true. Um,
I love how everyone. Sorry, I love how everyone puts on the red visors before they start stepping out of the ship. Like
yeah,
everyone's ready.
that was a
They're
cute
all,
moment.
um. So I agree with you 100%. Like this can be equated to anyone's journey. Like it's very easy to read into, and this is a talent that Star Trek has. I think a lot of people can read into the journeys that these characters are having. In terms of like the transgender like conversation that's being had today, I'll say this. Um, when it comes to transgender people on planet Earth today, it's not always an easy conversation to have, especially depending on who you have it with. And of course, there's always the big meme, think of the children, because not everyone has the same opinion on how like this issue should be dealt or discussed with children. And once again, Prodigy, geniuses of the genius world, have figured out a way to make it accessible and addressable for, I think, not only children, but also the adults that may not be too comfortable with talking about this.
100%.
So it's like, I know that there was a time for allegory and a time metaphor, no allegory. But I feel
Is
like
that the same thing as allegory?
Oh, sorry, allegory. Sometimes I
I
fuck up
like
my
allegory.
words.
Maybe that's how they say it in New
I
Zealand
don't
and
know.
France.
I don't know. Sometimes I just invent words because I see them written all the time, but I never say them.
I won't say.
Or
Never mind.
metaphor. You want me to say metaphor?
Yeah.
I could say
Allegory and metaphor, yes, but
they're similar. I
allegory.
think that they
Yeah.
may not be exactly the same, but no, there is a time for that. I understand that there is a time where you want to see things that are more, I guess, concrete, more explicit. But I do feel like within the context of Prodigy, a metaphor or an allegory is completely fine. And on the contrary, I think it's actually a really good way to kind of like share a message, and it shares a sentiment. So like, it's like someone that doesn't necessarily agree with, transgender, might not be on the kind of more accepting side of the spectrum, might actually watch this episode and think, this is really cool, what's happening to Zero. And then it's like, oh yeah, well, now how do you feel about it when we equate it to this situation in real life? So, oh, okay. So I think it's a really eye-opening way of doing things, and I think it was done very tastefully and very tactfully, and then from like a character perspective, it was really heartwarming to see how like Zero be so hype about it and the group be so hype about it. So it was very well made. It was very well done.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I mean, there's so many discussions you can have around this episode with folks. I mean, like talking about what it means to Zero, but also talking, you could talk about like maybe someone was like, maybe someone in the group might not understand why Zero is on this journey. And, like there's just all kinds of like awesome opportunities for conversation and discourse, certainly more than we have in it now.
Oh,
But
absolutely.
that's why again I place this episode so high up, because it is one of those episodes that like kind of, those rare episodes that like really stick with you and breach into like real life, but in a way that like just, in a way that's undeniable. I don't know if that's like
Yeah,
the
no,
way to say it.
absolutely.
It's like,
And then
yeah, it's like,
from like a Star Trek fan perspective, and I mean, I know we don't all have like the same experience with different Star Trek shows, but there have been Star Trek shows where I end up talking about, I guess, the canon. You know what I mean? We're talking about the visuals, we're talking about that, talking about this. I very much prefer coming out of an episode talking about like the social, dilemma that's going on, talking about the metaphor that they've been developing. And like this is the kind of episode where you come out of it and that's what stuck with you. That's what you're talking about. And then of course, secondary to that is really like all of the character moments that you get, because there were so many adorable character moments.
yeah,
Even like just Gwil. Oh
Will.
my god, I'm shipping them now. Even I didn't even do it on purpose. Even with like Gwyn and Dal, um, just sitting there and like everyone goes off to dance, Rock's dancing, and they're like, oh, let's eat. You hungry? Okay, they go have a bite to eat.
That was a really cute scene.
Rock doesn't want to dance because she's a bit awkward. She's big, you know what I mean. But she might
Yeah,
push over someone, especially like they're all like lean, little lanky things, and she's like, I might. And then Rock's like, no. Jankum's like, you know what? I'll make some space on the dance floor. It was cute. It was really nice.
and what a cute party too. It was a cool party. Earlier Jill asked, does Zero wanting senses kind of undo the idea that being non-corporeal is a more desirable evolved state? Kind of like that this was I kind of like that this was challenged, to be honest. I think that like Star Trek has a really good balance of presenting non-corporealness as either desirable or also sometimes non-desirable. I mean, look at the ascensions in lower decks. Like,
Ah!
it's true. But there's been a lot of times also in Star Trek, and I think the Paxons are the ones that like where they invaded the bodies. Weren't they the ones that like invaded uh Troy and crew and tried to take over the ship? Wasn't during the Baryon sweep or something like that? I
Something
forget.
like that, yeah.
Am I mistaken? No, what? I'm like totally
Hold
mixing
on.
episodes up. But
Troy
anyways, there's
possessed by a Paxson.
Troy was, right? Yeah, I knew it. And she had this weird kind of
Clues.
voice. like clues. Okay, that was the episode. Yeah. Anyways, because they were trying to keep people away from their planet. That was
Yeah,
yes, that was a
yeah.
good episode.
I don't
Uh
I don't feel like non-corporeal is necessarily like a state that would be I don't know, superior
and there's
to like
characters like Q that can possess has the that possesses the power to be corporeal and non-corporeal at the same time, which is interesting too.
I didn't think it's a different state. And I feel like us as corporeal beings, like of course we would be intrigued to like experience a non-corporeal kind of like state, right? Like I feel like everyone would want
There's
to
a lot
just
of by the way, there's
feel
a bunch of koalas in the chat. Sorry, carry on.
spam koalas in the chat, I guess.
Spamming the koalas, I love
But yeah, no, so it makes sense to me like the other way around that like non-corporeals would at least for an instant like to kind of like feel how it is.
Right. And the other thing is like interestingly enough, like it seems like when you've been if you've like we don't really know anything about the Medusans. They could have started out as non-corporeal beings. They may have never been corporeal to begin with. That might have been how they are. Like they're not evolving
Non-corporeal from day one.
from day one. Yeah. So that could be a thing as well. And so for them, maybe evolution is the other way around to go from non-corporeal to corporeal. So it's all a matter of perspective, I guess. But yeah, good question. Yeah, I do think Star Trek does a good job of balancing it out
Yeah, yeah.
overall.
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
do think so.
There's a
I
lot
think
of
so.
a lot of non-corporeals now that I'm thinking about it, because there's the Celestial Temple, the wormhole aliens. They're kind of the first time I feel like we were talking about non-corporeal beings and like really got to like dive into how they work and
So I
stuff
have a
like that.
question actually. When there's a transporter accident or something done on purpose and you're held in the transporter buffer, are
Hold on,
you in
sorry, I
a
just have to acknowledge that yes, there's this.
are you in a non-corporeal state?
No, maybe because Barkley still retains some consciousness in that one episode
Because you
where
can see those worms floating around, right?
those worms. Hey, that's a really good question. I don't know. The Organians, that's another good example. Wow,
Scotty
lots
was Scotty was non-corporeal for like what, how many 80 years was it?
80 years. That's crazy. But he wasn't conscious, so that's the difference.
That sucks.
I know. But he would imagine the torture of being like non-corporeal but
Okay.
stuck for 80 years.
Fauna and flora. All right. The
Right.
birds and the bees of Star Trek. I very much enjoy seeing my animals and my plants on Star Trek every time we explore a strange new world. I want to see, yes, the cultures and the buildings and everything, but I love seeing like the nature, what's going, like, every time even when they just CG a little, critter, like in the beginning of a scene, be it in The Mandalorian or like in Discovery, I absolutely love it. And so this was like a smorgasbord of that. I got like it was amazing. Like they're running through these like tulipy kind of flowers.
Yep.
And then as they run through them, they detach and they float up into, I guess, a lower gravity atmosphere. And then this
or it
giant,
could just be their shape. I imagined it's their shape that catches the wind.
Perhaps, but they float up. And then
yeah,
so this giant stingray floats in. A flying stingray, kind of like, this is like, it gave me mad what was it called, that crazy sci-fi show, Mother, no, what was it called,
yes,
the weird thing that we
we're
all liked.
obsessed with. What is it called? Dang it, why are we blanking on it now?
I don't know. Mike McMahon used to
collective blanking. What is that?
Anyway, so it
Raised by Wolves.
It gave me mad Raised by Wolves vibes.
Yes.
This thing's floating and then it's catching all of these flowers and eating them. I'm assuming that once that giant floaty thing poops like somewhere up high in the atmosphere, or like in the clouds, like all of the seeds are going to fall and I guess populate and regrow on top of another hill. or a mountaintop. It's just it was amazing. I loved it.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. What did you think of Ion?
Very interesting leader. I think the design was great. I really loved like visually.
Was he right or was he wrong? Like, what do you think about his methodology with his approach with Zero? Because it's not just something he would like. It's something he was like that was the way he wanted to do it from the beginning. Because even the one person says you didn't tell him everything, and he's like, I know, I only told him the choice. I only gave him the choice. The rest is for him to experience. And then even after, he's still insistent to Zero, hey, like it's something that I feel you can only experience in order to make the right choice. And Zero's like, well, in a weird way, Zero kind of agrees with him, even though he still feels like his personhood was not respected.
Okay,
So yeah, he's an interesting character. I wonder about.
I'll say it this way, okay? I disagree with the decision to omit like all of the truth. I think that all of the truth should have been said, but I do feel like it was coming from a genuinely good place. I don't think it was ill-intended, because I think that Ion was like, if I immediately tell Zero off the bat, like, you're going to leave this planet, you're going to lose the body, and if you go through like the fear chase, you're not going to want to detach from the body. Zero would have been like, then I don't want the body. I'm not going to put myself in that situation where I'm going to jeopardize like my intentions to leave with my friends. I want to leave with my friends. Like I think Zero would have come to that conclusion and be like, no, thank you. And that would have disappointed Ion, because I think Ion really does feel like it is something that needs to be experienced for non-corporeals like himself.
I think that I wonder how many of the other non-corporeals that are there were kind of brought there by Ion. Well, I don't know if is it a trick or an.
No one seems
like
displaced or displeased.
They seem more shocked that Zero didn't make the decision to stay. It feels like this conversation's happened like a bunch. Well, I don't know if this conversation's how often this conversation's happened, like, or whatever, how often they get new people, how long these people have been on the planet. There's a lot of unanswered questions.
I would assume that a majority of the people that turn up are people that are alone, kind of like lost, and they don't necessarily have like a family like Zero does. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because Zero has like a great group.
Like he was like Zero at one point, I think, too. But interestingly enough, also I guess Ion believes that, or according to his experience, or that it's irresistible. Of course, you'd want to stay and keep your body. So that's what I sensed at the end, is like Ion thought it was a noble choice, but like the people behind him kind of seemed shocked that Zero didn't want to stay. I was actually like, I already felt like Zero was not going to stay, because we know Zero, but like
I would have been very, very, very surprised, honestly.
Yeah.
If we were season 7 of this show and we had been through like 7 seasons of a progressive Zero, like, and then I knew this was like the last season of a 7-season show, I would have been like, no, Zero's staying, because this is like a logical kind of like conclusion to the story of the character. But yeah, not
look, someone else agrees with you.
Yes.
Cake is the turn of 0 equals.
How do you feel about that? Take your data back home. 0 is Odo. 0 ain't data. Dang.
So do you think the end game for 0 is to rejoin the collective of Medusans, like however Medusans live, or is 0 going to be, because
because 0 isn't a bastard cop.
What if wasn't 0 security for a little while? Was 0 security? No, 0 is always medical and science. Yeah, That's so funny. I don't like Odo. I like Zero.
Yeah, I feel like I guess mentally or psychologically, they're very different, like Odo and Zero. Like they're not comparative in that way. You know what I mean? But I feel like kind of in the journey that it is, it makes more sense to me than Data or even Seven.
Geek Filter, hey Aaron, says the issue is it's set up as if he's a bad guy, but revealing that he had no ill intentions came too soon, so it just sort of felt awkward all around. Yeah, I mean, like, it's just, I think Ion needs to consider what Zero says, I think, going forward, right? Like, I think he's got to think about maybe a new approach,
I
for
don't.
sure.
So I wasn't the awkward all around that you're feeling. I didn't necessarily feel it with Ion. I did feel a bit of awkwardness about the floating stingray, because when they talk about like the great fear and everyone running away from like the beast, I was expecting some dragon type shit, you know what I mean, like some really truly just terrifying horrible thing, but it's like it's a majestic being that, as they were saying in the chat earlier, I don't even know if like it can digest
But they were
human,
saying
like,
if you survive the run of the Nazamon, right?
yeah, but they
Then
were quite literally as engulfed as possible in the being's like inside, and they just crawled out of the mouth. So it
I
doesn't
have a
seem
theory
like
that
such a
I have a theory
difficult thing
though.
to
I,
survive,
I
honestly.
have a theory though. I don't think the Nazamon has ever eaten anyone. I think that fear has given past participants like a literal heart attack. And that's like, maybe they're not.
What?
Yeah, like maybe they're
That's an
not dying.
assumption.
Cause like you're right, like the
That's a
Nazarite, it feels like
wild guess.
you could just climb out, wait
Just
till it
climb
like
out. It doesn't even close its mouth. Come on, bro.
So maybe they died of like heart attacks or fear. Maybe they died of fear, which
Okay,
is like
come on. These bodies are created by what? Like something from the rings?
I don't
And like if your heart is that weak, just put more rings in it. You know what I mean?
know. That's funny. Zero equals Wesley. You didn't know not to step in those particular flowers. That's really good. That's another good connect. This episode's so connected to the wider Star Trek canon. I love it. There's so many little connections to a lot of other Star Trek, especially
So
stuff like
I
that.
do very much like the fact that these people are portrayed as I would say in communion or close to nature. So I said tribal in the beginning, and that's kind of how it is, but not necessarily, because they are still quite advanced. You know what I mean? But they're living with, like, I feel like a respect of the nature and of the planet, and that makes a lot of sense to me. Like if you've never been able to feel anything ever, and all of a sudden you can, I feel like your levels of empathy to anything and everything surrounding you would be like massive. You know what I mean? So it made a lot of sense to me that was like how their community and how it was all set up.
The non-corporeal physical presence. I forgot to mention this. It reminded me a lot of those beings in Valerian. The movie. Do you know what I'm talking about? Have you seen Valerian and the city?
Yeah.
What is it? The city of 1,000 worlds or whatever.
Yeah.
Do you remember those guys with the pearls? Did they
Mm-hmm.
remind you kind of similar in design to like to the
Kind of.
non-corporeal?
Have you read
Elements?
Valerian? Or you
No, I've
just...
only ever seen the movie, which
I should show you some pictures of the first Valerian book that came out, I think, years before Star Wars and Star Trek.
Oh, okay.
And it's very interesting because, like, the Millennium Falcon is stolen from Valerian.
Is it?
Yeah. And
Oh,
also,
interesting.
and it's not stolen. Well, the Millennium Falcon is, but the Star Trek stuff isn't so much. But it's just really funny because there's a moment where you see three different officers. There's like a communications officer, there's like an engineer, and then there's like a regular, I don't know what, but they're wearing red, yellow, and blue. and like there's like an Asian guy wearing yellow, and then there's like a black woman wearing red, and I think someone else wearing blue. And I was like, oh, that's so Star Trek. But this is written in like the 50s, right?
Oh wow, I didn't realize this. We'll have to talk about it more. All I know is that the only thing I remember other than those beings is Dane DeHaan looking really sexy as Valerian.
So I'll say this: I did not at one point think about Valerian ever while watching this episode. It didn't connect any dots there. But no, I think, but it was stunning. It was truly stunning, like visually. This episode, like they really, I don't know. It's like the alien design and everything. It's so great, and like the little touch to put the non-corporeal appearance in their eyes is so good. So like Zero's kind of cloudy shape and cloudy colors, like they're in their eyes. It's so good.
I'm trying to find a picture of the creatures. Creatures, I shouldn't say creatures. The beings, the people from Valerian. Here we go.
The beings.
The beings. Hold on, copy. Let's see if we can. Yeah, here we go.
So I think that this whole situation, though, going forward, has kind of compromised the idea of the fear. Because now no one will be afraid. Like all of the people that are on the planet currently, they will not be afraid of the giant stingray, considering 2 people managed to escape completely unscathed. They can culturally keep the lore alive. Like when new people come, you know what I mean? They can be like, oh, it's really scary. It's going to kill you. And then so they can actually keep the fear alive. And then I guess it can become kind of a tradition where you know that there's no real fear going into it, but the participants believe that.
Wait, you think just because they survived that there's not a real threat?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Like if I'm walking along, hold on.
The run of the Nazmon has been going on way before Zero. Yeah.
If every time you saw someone get hit by a car on the road, nothing happened to them, like they were literally unscathed, you would no longer be afraid of being hit by a car. You'd be like, well,
no, I would still be afraid of.
No, if every time, regardless of the shape,
I would think that those people were doing some kind of weird, crazy
ridiculous
magic.
You'd be like, turns out, ain't too bad.
The thing is that they do the run of the Nazmon. They've been doing it for like such a long time. It just doesn't seem like they're gonna believe. It doesn't seem to me like they're gonna believe it's not dangerous just because like 2 people survived and others have survived in the past as well, but many have died because they say that is a real threat. There have been deaths in the Nazmon.
No, I think it's bullshit. I think they say that for people that have just arrived in the colony, and I think that's to get their fear.
No,
that's
there's
what I would
real
do. I would create the fear so that they can actually feel the sensation. They fear for their lives, but you don't really put them in danger because you don't want to kill them.
But what about the Nazmon runners that have been doing it? It feels like they do it every year. Like,
is it not only No, it's only the new people that do it, right? So that they can become one with their body.
All those people were not new initiates. Zero was the only guy.
So they're doing it for. I don't know.
It's a ritual every year after the festival. Like, you've just arrived in time for the Festival of Senses, and now we're gonna do the running of the. Maybe they do it every night, Toddy. There weren't that many of them. I don't think
they'd be running every night. That's why there's no one left.
No, I just didn't get the sense that like they're not gonna. I think they're gonna continue doing it. I don't know. And also, I mean, I understand like the Nazmon seem to be interested in the flowers, not in eating the people, but the Nazmon was actually.
So here's my hot take.
Yeah.
What you need to take away from this episode has nothing to do with the Nazmon.
Oh, here you go. Look, lots of cows are chill, but being chased by a bull in the running would be scary. So maybe that was a bull Nazmon, or maybe that was a cow, but there's like bull Nazmon that we haven't seen yet. I don't know. And
maybe that was a baby that didn't have its teeth yet. It didn't know how to
yeah,
chew yet.
yeah, maybe
And when the real Nazimon comes in, it's like, holy shit, bro.
Geek Filter says, I agree with Toddy because otherwise it doesn't really make any logical sense with their biology. If Zero died when his body died, sure, but that doesn't happen. We've seen that. Maybe they just go back to being non-corporeal and then they can have a new body after that. But that first experience,
well, that takes
it's like,
I mean, that would take away from like the whole idea of dying.
it's really good questions. I don't know. I still think that I think that the death comes from heart attacks. They disincorporate from their bodies. But actually, this goes back to a
Jill
question I
says
had
it's
earlier.
a thrill, even though they know they won't die. Okay,
Is
so
the thrill?
I'm gonna drop some law.
A sense? Is it a
Drop some
sense?
law.
Go ahead.
I jumped out of a plane yesterday.
You did?
I did a parachute jump yesterday. I can show you some
What?
pictures, but I did a parachute jump yesterday. So the thrill
Holy
is jumping
shit.
out. I know I'm not gonna
Taki,
die, right?
that's cool.
But
you
the
don't
thrill
know if
is
you're not gonna die. That's actually a
cannot.
real legit thing. What if
But the thrill is you do it.
That's amazing.
So maybe it's similar to that experience.
I have mad respect for you. I would never jump out of an airplane, no matter how safe, unless it was like Star Trek technology, guaranteed safety. I just don't. I'm so impressed. That's cool. So you had your own run of the Nazimon. That was your Nazimon.
So when you jump out of when you like do the parachute jump,
fear
you're actually
itself,
strapped to someone else that also doesn't want to die. You know what I mean? That's a professional,
right?
not dying person that has been not dying for 17 years jumping out of a plane. So I was.
Did you have a breakthrough? I feel like you're different today. You did have a breakthrough. Also, that's what the run of the Nazimon is about. Is that I think these fear rituals or these thrill rituals, which might be a more accurate
it's an
term,
adrenaline moment.
It's not just adrenaline. I think
it's the X Games.
It's
Space Red Bull.
At least the very first time you do it, I think there's a transformative. It's a transformative type of experience. I don't know. You'll have to share. Maybe you're too close to the experience. But it's like Captain Kirk going out in space. I mean, William Shatner going out in space. That kind of thing. It's a new perspective of the world. You have a perspective of the world that very few people have. Like, not a lot of people can say. How many thousands of feet are you up in the air when you jump out of the airplane?
13,000 or 13.5.
That's think about tiny little you, 13,000 feet in the air. How many humans exist at that place in the world? Not only people jumping out of planes like you. So there you go. Pretty cool. I'm impressed, but I wouldn't do it. Maybe with my Apple Vision Pro.
It is about the time where we need to put an end to this conversation.
Yeah, we got to start wrapping up. But well, I had a question. I guess we could close on this. So, Ion describes fear as the forgotten sense that people don't really think, because we think of touch, sight, smell, taste, and audio, hearing, right? The five senses. So the sixth sense, which is, in Ion's opinion, fear. What's your take on that? Like, what do you think about it?
Well, I disagree. No, but I do. No, it makes sense from a non-corporeal.
What are we showing here on Twitter?
I'm not showing anything.
Oh, that's weird.
Who's doing that?
That's me.
You did that, you moron.
I'm like, why are we on Twitter? It was me
on X. No, I feel like I think it's a non-corporeal thing. Like a lot of non-corporeals, maybe they don't have necessarily like a fear of death because they don't fear so much like losing a limb, or you know what I mean? Like they don't have that kind of like physical kind of like we can get damaged, you know what I mean? They can't so much get damaged. I think that's where it comes from. I do think that our sixth sense is love.
Oh.
So yeah.
I like that. It's a delightful answer.
Because I feel like sometimes like there are connections and there are things that happen that can only really be happening with love. So, but that makes more sense to me. But then I'm not oh, there you go. I'm not non-corporeal, so I can't be speaking for like these other people. You know what I mean?
All right, that's a good spot to end on. Next week we're doing a 2-part special. Toddy, do we want to? Well, we'll talk about this and confirm with the audience, but maybe we could start a little earlier. Give us a little more time if you're
Yeah, we can
available.
do a bit of a longer episode if you want.
Because I
But
really am so excited for you to get to this.
We will be talking about the 2 episodes at once. They are part 1 and part 2, so they are,
The
in my opinion,
Devourer of
one
all
episode.
things. What do you think is going on? The Devourer of all things.
It sounds very Cthulhu. I'm gonna be honest with you, but hey, maybe not. We'll see.
I can't wait. I can't wait. You have not been spoiled at all. Finally, you're gonna get.
No, I got no clue what's going on.
And then it's like I can't wait.
Don't
This
know.
is so exciting. So, we're gonna be doing that. Normally, we do a discussion on Saturdays for Legacy Star Trek, and we're on Star Trek Deep Space Nine, but we're not having one this Saturday. I do apologize, audience, but I'm also a working man. I don't do this as a full-time job yet. maybe one day, who knows? But either way, it's still a lot of fun to hang with you. So I do try to make sure we do those. We might start doing them recorded so that you guys don't miss out on the episodes, and so we can move along. Because no pun intended, move along home. Move along in the discussions because there's 7 seasons to talk about, so I don't want to delay too much.
Along,
but we're also not in any hurry for this to move along home to Vajor. And then what was I going to say? Well, Lower Decks is coming back soon, so we'll be talking about that. There's a lot of fun stuff. There's no text track tonight.
The Devourer of all things.
We'll find out. Cake says no, live is so much fun. Oh my gosh, we're getting a lot of feedback, real-time feedback. I love this. All right, Toddy, what do you got to promote? Anything going on?
I got love to promote. Love people, love each other. There you
go. I love you. You're a good guy. I love our audience. I love everyone. I also promote love.
Jill says next week is not live. Next week will be live. We will be live.
We will be live.
This particular show will be live.
Podcast
whatever the hell you're doing with other people, you can do whatever you want with that. But we'll be live, you and me. There you go. Promote love, people. Just keep that in mind.
All right. Live long and prosper. Thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time. Woo!